Hey guys, welcome back. What you're looking at here is just a small little test section I'm doing, trying to determine, can you handle a track on top of Cork roadbed? Will it hold? Will the spikes pull out? Will there be alignment issues? Do you gotta use Homasote? Well, I don't know the answer to that entirely, so I'm doing this little experiment here. Made this short little section, about 2.5, 3 inches in length. I've got the Cork roadbed glued down to this, just pull it back out to this small little section of plywood here. Same as the what I'm using for my sub roadbed. I've got it glued down with just some tight bond wood glue. And the ties are in turn glued to the Cork roadbed with the tight bond wood glue. Now, having had this Cork roadbed laid down before underneath my 3-rail track when I'd had it, and I'd put it down with this tight bond glue, I'm here to tell you it holds this stuff solid. That said, will it work? I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and let this dry for a few hours and come back to it. I'm going to take a couple of small little sections of rail, and I'm going to use a few tie plates, just like I'm going to be handling everything else, and I'm going to go ahead and spike it down, just a small little straight section, of course, and we'll see how it does. If there appears to be some excessive movement in it, or there's going to be some issues with the gauge, that kind of thing, then we won't do it, and I will go ahead and use the Homasote, which I've got some down there already cut into some smaller sections. But I thought I would try this. I want to just see what's going to happen, because I'm going to be building these turnouts in place on the layout itself. They're not going to be built on a bench and then brought over here and installed. I'm going to build them in place. More so for the customization ability as opposed to anything else, because I'm going to have some that are going, in some unique areas and directions and stuff. So I thought we'd try it. I'm going to go ahead for the temporarily and just weight it down with this small little scrap section of rail that I have. And like I said, we'll let this cure for a couple hours, come back to it, try driving it through a few spikes in there, and see what happens. Does it pull out any easier than it does when it's into the Homasote? Does it, hold just as strong? Like I said, I don't know. We're going to find out. So we'll see what happens. And I'll come back to you in just a little bit, and like I said, we'll check it out and we'll see what happens. All right, we're back. I actually decided to let this stuff dry overnight just to see how it would, see how everything would hold and take. And everything is down pretty solid. So I'm pretty happy with it. What I've gone and done here is I cut a couple pieces of some Code 148 steel rail I had left over. Just, rough size and shape, Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and lay this track down. I'm going to do it the same way I'm going to be doing it all over the layout. Now, I've worked with, obviously, as you guys know, handling the stuff on top of Homasote and everything. So I know how well that holds, as well as many of you guys, obviously, that have worked with it before as well. Obviously, this isn't going to be done with me worrying about the track gauge and all that kind of stuff. I just want to go ahead and get this put in. Pardon my hand being in your way there, but my main objective here is I want to just get this in, and I want to see how well it will or will not hold. Because obviously, like I said earlier in the video, I have Homasote on hand. So if I need to use that again, I'm going to. But if I can do it this way, and it'll hold just as well, then that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and just continue spiking this in real quick, and then we'll come back once I've got it completed and do a little testing. Okay, guys, we're back. Just a brief second for you, about 10 minutes for me. What I did here, I'm going to zoom in a little bit on this. What I decided to do here was to incorporate tie plates, as you can see on one side, on this side right here. And on the other side, I decided I was going to try to spike this down without any tie plates. Reason being is there's going to be certain areas on my layout where some yard tracks and some industry leads where the ballast and things are going to come up, maybe right on top of the ties, or else like dirt or debris or something like that. So you're not going to see tie plates. And so as such, I'm not going to use them there and waste them. The other thing is, when I'm doing that, it'll probably be spiked every third or fourth tie. I'm not going to spike every single tie in that application because, again, you're not going to see it. And number two, it's not really going to be needed because of the fact that it's not mainline trackage. It's going to be very slow movements, that type of thing. So not a lot of stress. Whereas, again, on this side, obviously, like I said, I did incorporate the tie plates. I'm going to go ahead and just turn this so you get a better side-on view. So we've got our tie plates in place. What I utilized here was some Code 148 steel rail that I had. That's not nickel silver, it's steel. That back in the day I had gotten from Lou Cross at Right Away. Excellent to work with. I've had it sitting down here in my basement, honestly, on the floor for a couple of years, and there isn't any kind of rust or oxidation on it. So that was lucky. Anyway, so again, the purpose of this is I wanted to see how strong is this track going to be held in place when I'm going through the ties and then into the cork. Now, the spikes I'm using, they're only penetrating the cork about halfway after they've gone through this tie and the tie plate. So if I was using Homasote, it would penetrate into the Homasote by maybe not even an eighth of an inch. So I'm kind of just wondering, is it worth the hassle and the mess of cutting and putting in the Homasote? Now, the Homasote obviously is a bit thicker, so when cut and angled for a ballast profile, it would raise the track up a little bit more. Excuse me, but I'm not too concerned about that. A lot of the stuff I'm modeling on the NW, there wasn't a whole lot of elevation, if you will, in the track from the roadbed itself. So I'm not too worried about that in terms of appearance. Again, I do want to make sure it's going to have some strength to it, though, for where it's going to be utilized in some curved sections of track. Some of the track, as I've talked about in other videos, is going to be micro-engineering flex track, Code 148, and some of it's going to be hand-laid. A lot of the stuff that's going to be up close that you're going to be able to look at is going to, part of that's going to be in the yard and the engine servicing facility. So again, not exactly high-speed trackage. And again, even when it is utilized in the main line, with most of the curvatures and stuff like that on the NW, speeds were low. Speeds weren't terribly high, even on the passenger trains. So I'm not going to be like that kid under the Christmas tree who's got his train running, at 120 scale miles an hour. So, that said, my initial reaction to this is it's pretty dang strong. I mean, you can't really tell, but I'm putting some real pressure on this. Even the side without the tie plates, it's really not budging. I did not worry about doing this totally in gauge. The gauge actually is a little wide. But if I take a 2-rail wheel set here, this is off one of the Atlas tank cars that I'd had and I'm utilizing for something else. You can see here by how much I can turn this. It's pretty out of gauge. Okay. I did that also because I wanted to have a little bit of room so I get a little bit of leverage and just try to twist the wheel set in there and see what happens with the rail, and it's not budging. So initially, obviously in terms of the strength, it's pretty darn strong. Again, just to recap, this cork roadbed is glued down. The ties are glued to the cork. I'm just going to zoom back out here for a moment to a bit of a wider shot. And all I used to attach this was some tight bond wood glue. The original formula, this stuff right here. Nothing special, just picked it up at the big box store that's close to my house. Utilized this, and like I said, I weighted this down overnight. I had a small section of scrap track of actual rail that I used. That was cut up from a local railroad from the area here. But at any rate, This is solid. I mean, it's, you know, it's on here. This stuff isn't going anywhere. So what I'm thinking about doing is, instead of utilizing Homasote, I'm thinking about using just this cork everywhere. Now, obviously, does this test tell me anything about long-term usage and how things are going to hold up? No, it doesn't. Does it give me, obviously, an initial reaction to it? Yeah, it's strong. I'm telling you, it's in there. I'm pushing on this, and it's not budging. And again, with the spikes, let me see if I can pull one out here for you guys to see. Okay, here's a spike. Let me get it in a better view. Go ahead and just zoom in a little bit here. That is the spike I'm using here. And to give you some kind of an idea of the length of that, I'm just going to take a tip of a pencil here. Let me zoom out a little bit so it'll actually focus. Okay. And I got my finger at the end of it, but now I'll pull my finger away. Okay, we're both pretty much familiar how long the length of a sharpened pencil is coming out of a pencil sharpener. So get an idea of that there. In terms of its overall length, I forget what it is. Let me just pull a tape measure out here and measure this real quick. Bear with me here with my highly sophisticated mathematics here. I'm just going to put it on here and nudge it into place. The spike on average, it is from the head of the spike to the tip, it's just a hair over a quarter of an inch in length, as you can see there. Got the spike resting right here. So just a hair over a quarter of an inch. Now, like I said, after inserting it through, let me get this out of the way. After inserting it through the tie plate, the tie, again, going in at, at our angles, we, want to go in at about a 45, not quite a 45 degree angle, but angled into the ties. It's not penetrating this cork very far at all. Like I said at the beginning of the video, it's not even going in by 1/8 of an inch. I mean, it's such a minute amount that I don't think the long-term benefits of utilizing Homasote I really don't think it's worth it. In the end, by the time I'd cut everything out, would the Homasote be more cost-effective? Yeah, I think it would be. What I'm doing here is I'm just going to insert a spike in to about the same height as the rail head, and then I'm going to come back out and grab it. Okay. Now, I don't know how well you can see this, but right below my hand, right below those spiking pliers, that's actually what's penetrating into the cork on an angle. So yeah, actually it is going in about halfway into the cork. So, but yeah, you know what? But that's, like I said, that's what's going into the cork. That's what would be in turn going into the Homasote. And I got to tell you, I've had my previous stuff built on Homasote, and I've also pulled it apart. When it came down, and trying to make the kids happy and things, I switched a lot of stuff back over to 3-rail just to come along and find out they really dig the 2-rail stuff. But anyway, and I got to tell you, when I was pulling it apart, the rail spikes, it all pulled back out pretty easy. I'd had the ties glued to the Homasote. The Homasote, in turn, was attached to the sub-roadbed, to the plywood. I had used liquid nails, I believe, in the caulk gun, construction adhesive, essentially. That was real fun pulling back up off the plywood, but the track itself, the the rails, the spikes, it all pulled back up relatively easy. It wasn't that hard. And I'm here to tell you, like I said, in pushing on this stuff is pretty solid. The bulk of the track where I'm going to be handling, the bulk of it is going to be straight tangent track. A few areas will have some curvature to it, but not a lot. But even where it does, I'm going to be using a rail bender that I have and bending the rail to the radius I need. So there's not going to be that stress of the rail itself, pushing back out, trying to straighten itself out. It's going to be pre-bent to that radius. Like I said, will it hold up over time in terms of, continuous, let's just say, pounding of the train going over? I don't know. But, I'm going to try it. And maybe it'll fail miserably. But my intent, I apologize, my furnace is kicking on. Sorry about that. I'll talk a little louder here. But my intent is, once I obviously get the track work in, all the turnouts in, everything's wired up, DCC's fired up, I'm going to run trains down here for quite a while before I begin any kind of ballasting, that type of thing, because obviously I want to make sure I've got operational reliability. And I figure, if I can run some trains down here for a few hours at a time for an extended period of time over the course of a couple of months or so, and then come back and check this on a daily or every other day basis and see hey, how's it holding up? Is it still holding tight? Are any of the spikes backing back out? Is anything loosening up? Is it coming out of gauge anywhere? And if at that point everything's staying where it needs to stay and it's still holding solid and things are not backing out, if the gauge is not opening up, I'm going to leave it and I'm going to go ahead and excuse me, I'm going to go ahead and start the scenery work in earnest at that point and the ballasting and everything, and I'm going to roll with it, and I'm going to see how it goes. Like I said, I'm building my turnouts in place where I'm going to need to curve a few rails for those turnouts. I'm going to have a few curved turnouts. Again, those are going to be bent through a rail bender. Which of course, obviously, pre-bending it is going to alleviate a lot of that stress of it wanting to open back up. It's going to, not want to spring back to its original shape, So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take that approach. Here's my little experiment, be it as it may. But again, I'm putting some pressure on here, and it's not wanting to open up at all. It's in there. Zoom in and take one final tight shot of this. And just so you can see what we have. Oh, a little too far, sorry about that. But again, you get a pretty good idea here of what I have going on. Again, tie plates on the left, spike on each side, rail on the right here, no tie plates, but again, spiked on either side. And it's holding it tight, I got to tell you. Most of the gripping force is being provided by these ties here. That said, I've had these ties, and the ties that I'm going to be using have been down here in my basement for a couple of years. So they're about as acclimated to the climate down here as they're going to get. Same thing with this bench work and stuff. I've had the wood and the plywood down here that this bench work's constructed out of for quite a while. And I haven't, as of yet, really seen any kind of movement. Everything I utilized was kiln-dried material. So, and I keep the humidity down here at 40%. And again, you saw this rail, like I said, that was sitting on my floor, and there's no corrosion on it. And it's untreated, unprotected steel rail. So I think I'll be okay in terms of that. After the previous experience of having my other layouts down here, my earlier 3-rail layouts and the earlier 2-rail venture, even when summertime came and humidity levels rose, the only thing that would happen is obviously a dehumidifier would run a little bit more, but I did not see any kind of massive expansion of anything down here. Again, mostly because I keep that humidity level consistent. When we have the heat and air on, we've got the vents open down here, so it's very comfortable down here. There's no sense of moisture. You don't feel that dampness or mugginess like you do in some basements. So I don't think that'll be an issue with this. I think it might work out okay. But I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go with it. I'm going to try it, and hopefully it'll hold up. And if not, after a month or two of running it, running trains on it, If I start noticing problems, believe me, I'm going to do a video and report that to you guys and let you know, hey, you know what? I was wrong. Bad idea. Don't do it. But at this point, I'm kind of happy with it. It's holding tight. So we'll see what happens. That's going to conclude this video. Stay tuned. A lot more stuff coming up in the future. Thanks for watching.